Hello there, listener. When it comes to your wealth and your worth, what is it that you truly desire? Getting in touch with your body and the way that you feel about your body can completely transform the way that you're experiencing not only your financial success in the world, but the way that you make your way through the world as a human being. Today, I'm going to be talking with Sabre Bruffy, and she's going to share some really amazing tools, ideas, and experiences that she's gone through in building a wealth of knowledge and literal wealth, financial wealth, from a relatively challenged background from nothing. Stay tuned. Every day there is a forgetting, and every moment there is the possibility of remembering. Remembering who you truly are, awakening to your body, to the inner world, to the experience of being alive. Here is where you find the beauty, the joy, and here is where you free your soma. I'm your host, Amy Takaya. I'm here to help you move from pain to power, from tension to expansion, and ultimately from fear to love. Hi, Sabre. It's so nice to finally meet you.
Hi, Amy. I am so honored to be here. I'm really excited for this conversation. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the stories that you probably have about going from one way of experiencing like our world and society, and then now experiencing like a whole nother realm of like world and society. Like in some ways, it may be something that people think of as like a fairy tale or something. Like, how could it be this great and this good? How could you go from living with such challenge to having such success? And I think it's those kind of stories that very much inspire people, because there's a lot of people out there, some people who are listening right now who are struggling. They're not just struggling economically, they're struggling internally. They're struggling with their relationship to their body, with the image of themselves that they walk around carrying, right? And then unconsciously transmitting out into the world. So I'm so excited to hear your insights and share your story with everyone. You know, coming from the place that you're at now and looking back, can you tell us a bit about what it's like to build this, dare I say, empire from nothing?
I love that. I love the word empire, by the way, and that took me a long time to actually really fully claim. But I really love sharing where I come from in my story because you're so right that, I remember when you were talking about this, I remember when I first started listening to podcasts, when I was starting to get that light turned on, when I was starting to think about something so much bigger. I was a fresh college dropout trying to figure it out as an artist. I was working at least 80 hours a week, really just like, I think I was maybe 3 years into having my art business. And I was making okay money and I was getting by, but I was really stuck in this survival mode. And I was just trying to crack that code with entrepreneurship. And I'm sure a lot of listeners can really resonate with this. It's like cracking that code of entrepreneurship. What is that like? Because you hear all these people and like, what was their breakthroughs? And for a lot of people, yes, it was a business model. But for a lot of people, yes, it was also the worthiness. It was also just a reclamation and really claiming to really rewrite your story. So I just remember hearing story after story, even today, like stories still continue to inspire me where I'm at as I continue to build this empire. But when it felt like such a far off, distant dream, it was what got me through those hard times, 80 plus hours a week and still not profiting after years. Like, who's crazy enough to do that kind of stuff, right? Entrepreneurs are crazy enough to do that stuff. But it's because we hear people who really didn't give up on their dreams and eventually figure they cracked the code. And I don't believe that there's a destination, right? So I always feel that when people introduce me or they share my story around like wealth, but it's like the wealth actually started before the money actually came in.
Mm.
So I'll just cycle back a little bit and just reframe this by letting everybody know and anyone listening that I definitely did not come from money. I never even thought about being wealthy growing up. I'm living here in Paris full time now, but I'm the first person in my family that got a passport and left their country. Like I'm the first person in my family who decided to not go the traditional route. I grew up with a solo mom. She passed away when she was 50 years old, unfortunately, from suicide and an opiate overdose because she was so trapped mentally, sexually, physically, financially, emotionally, spiritually, like you name it. But I saw that trapped energy come from trying to fit her, this beautiful, free-spirited woman who could literally do anything she could. She literally built cars, houses, worked on computers. She was really psychic. She was gorgeous, played every musical instrument you could ever even think of. She sang like an angel. She was crazy smart. She won weightlifting competitions against men and dance competitions. Like, seriously. But traditional ways of living, it was like we came from a Japanese lineage, actually. My grandmother's full-blooded Japanese. You gotta be a doctor was the message that we received. You gotta go to school and be either a doctor or a lawyer, and that's the only way you're gonna create security. So anyway, I watched my mom do this, right? And as I grew up, we didn't have access to anything. We were on government money and we were eating celery and peanut butter for lunch and dinner most of the time. That's what I knew. So unnaturally, as you can imagine, my mom passed when I was 15 years old. So when I got into foster care when I was about 12 years old, went to many different foster homes because seriously could not keep me in. I kept running away. Because it was like starting to repeat that pattern, right? A free bird, like, don't put me in this cage. They tell you that you have to go to school and you have to, even when I went into a transitional housing program, exiting foster youth, I'm really grateful for those kinds of support. They like paid my rent and helped me out and when I moved out to really try to get my feet off the ground. But they were still teaching me to be in the system. I had to go to school full time. I had to work full time, right? I got myself kicked out of that because because I ended up just feeling so stifled and so suffocated. And I just decided, you know what, I would rather not be able to afford rent for a while and figure out like what I'm going to do to create a different life. I was so committed to it. So I started my art business actually living in a van, in a minivan on the beaches of Santa Cruz, California. If people have been there, you know that you probably have seen a lot of camper vans in those areas. And it was a very fun, like free spirited time in my life to just explore myself, my spirituality, how I wanted to live. I got introduced to Burning Man communities, going to Burning Man and festivals, and eventually started selling art at festivals. And then I had this booth. It was called Bless is More Medicine and Magic. And that's really all I wanted in the beginning was to just live my life in medicine and magic, right? Like this motto, bless is more. The irony of this, though, you know how they say less is more, the universe will provide, oh, we have everything that we need, right? There was a lot of money wounding in the artist and spiritual community, right? So me coming in with my money wounding and experiencing entrepreneurship for the first time in this culture, I again felt that stifling, suffocated energy that was just all too familiar. It
Mm.
was scarcity, right? It was scarcity, it was lack, it was not enoughness, not enough time, 80 plus hours a week working, not enough money because we're trading our time for money. And it was just like starting over from scratch in this hustle and grind all the time. And not enough ultimately came down to feeling not enough inside,
Yeah.
not enough inside. And in this journey of me being an artist, I started dance. I started doing dance maybe 12 years ago. I got into a burlesque troupe, and I was literally, I had an eating disorder for binge and purging when I started when I was 8 years old.
Mm.
And I found myself getting into this burlesque troupe when I was maybe 20. I think I was just about, that's right, I was just about to turn 21, I remember, because the October before my first event, I wasn't 21 yet. So we had to do this thing at the event place to get me in to actually just perform. But it was so transformational for me as a woman to start healing my relationship with my body. And ironically, that's what introduced me to the path of just deep trauma healing, which there was a lot of layers to it, right? There was like, I had to go through, well, through my times of being in foster care, I went through not just the emotional and the physical and everything abuse, but also sexual abuse and so many, just name it, like there's a lot of things that I went through when I was growing up and going through foster care and running away and all this mess. But healing my relationship with my body took me on this journey of healing through somatics, healing through sexual healing, which ironically led me to money, sexual healing, and our womb and wealth being connected. And so, gosh, I can't even remember the origin of your question, but
Yeah,
essentially,
it's about building
wrap
from
this
nothing,
up.
and you're taking us through it, like
Oh,
this
yes,
is
that's
the
what it was.
process. The
That's what it
process
was.
is
Right.
multi-layered, it's non-linear, it's
Yeah.
multi-dimensional, right? That's what I'm really getting here. So you said something just a moment ago. I'd love for you to dive a little deeper. You said the connection between our sexuality, our womb, and our wealth or our financial success is what a lot of people label wealth. But as we're seeing, it's much more interdimensional than that.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I was going to wrap that up with was I went to my first sexual healing retreat. It was actually a serpent dancing retreat slash sexual healing. Very powerful. I was working with this woman. She's a serpent priestess and she danced with serpents. I met her when she was pregnant, and I was so intimidated by this woman when I first met her, but I realized it was just because there was such a power and a presence that this woman had that I was like, there's some serious magic codes to unlock with me in there. And I didn't know what it meant. It felt really mysterious and really taboo. And also, I just felt so pulled and allured to it. So, gosh, I went to that sexual healing retreat. It was the first time I had invested in myself, $1,111. I remember being on the phone, and my pull was to really crack through this code of my work, of really stepping into my power. But I knew stepping into my power meant I wasn't going to be feeling like a slave to my passions anymore. I felt like there was something there that was connected with how I was earning, the way that I was being, the way that I was receiving, like all of it was connected. I didn't fully understand. I just knew that this was it. And I was also scared to all bits, like fully. And, but I threw myself out there, like I really threw myself out there. I went to this retreat. And when I remember doing this really powerful ritual with everybody there, and we were calling in what we were really activating and manifesting through this like orgasmic ritual that we were doing. And I was like, I'm calling in big money. I remember saying that specifically, big money. And I found the business model that I'm in now, where I'm leading women towards learning how to create generational wealth. I've been building this business for 5 years. I'm on track to actually earn generational wealth, which is massive because that is like truly repatterning, not even just on the physical sense of how I'm living, right? But how I'm actually earning and being able to pass this down to my future children and their children. Like that's massive. I found this business model 2 weeks after that sexual healing retreat.
Hmm.
So for me, that was so telling that what we're really receiving and how open we are to opportunities, how open we are to life and magic unfolding is really connected to our power source and our sexual energy. So I guess I'll pause there because there's so much I can say within that, but that was a really huge trajectory and it really stemmed from healing my relationship with my body and with my eating disorder through dance, which awakened sexual energy that brought me to what I do today.
Did you know that your muscles are holding on to thoughts, memories, and feelings? If you have a tight neck or back, you're not just getting old, you're experiencing a buildup of tension from the life you've lived. Most people don't know this, but there is a part of your brain that can reverse and prevent chronic tension. When you relax your muscles, you not only move better and regulate your nervous system, but you also free yourself from the grip the past has over your body. So you can live with freedom, confidence, and enjoy your life now. How does that sound? Join me, Amy Takaya, and discover what my clients are raving about at youcanfreeyoursoma.com. Yes, and in terms of, the things that you had to let go of, the ideas and the shadows, I guess you could say, that you had to integrate in your body, right? And maybe some of it might have been like overcoming or waking up to the different patterns that you had held. I mean, we can't change anything that we're not conscious of. And I think some people who are listening already, as they're listening to you talk, they know what kind of like patterns they're holding. And some people listening might not know, and there's kind of an unraveling and an uncovering that goes on in this process. And a lot of times, as you described, it's part of being connected to a person, right? Or a teacher or some kind of example who challenges us with their presence, because we can
Yeah.
feel into the way that they are being about sexuality, the way that they are being about worth. And it shines a light on the places in us that are not aligned, like it shows us the ways in which we are not where they are, right? And it's not to say that, like, you know I guess sometimes we pedestalize people like that, and yet at the
Yeah.
same time it's like they're just a little bit further along the path than we are. They just have like alchemized or understood some of their shadow, right? And that we haven't digested yet. So it's not like that they're better humans than us. They're just on a different wavelength, and we're feeling into that. So maybe you can say, during this time that you were awakening to all of this, were there moments that you felt really like scared or triggered by the things that you were being invited to consider? And can you give us some examples of things that were difficult to like transform?
Yeah, I'm smiling so big because I'm like, all day long, baby. It's like, I truly believe now that whatever you fear, whatever you resist persists. So anything that you feel a trigger by, there is so much medicine for you there, and you can run away from it all you want, but it's gonna be there. And what's there for you on the other side of that fear, it once you alchemize that and actually lean in and explore that, and you're not always ready at the time, right? So, but it's like you give yourself permission to lean into that edge constantly. I always tell people that I literally live by flying by the seat of my pants all the time. Like, I'm often having this new glass ceiling that I'm hitting, and it feels really stretchy and really uncomfortable. I do things way before I'm ready, and it's just the way that I live now because I've learned that um yeah, I could either stay on that side of fear and tell that narrative and keep myself stuck in playing these same, like you say, patterns, or I can challenge that and start quantum leaping and playing into new dimensions because I 100% pedestaled people. Like, that woman was the first woman that I felt that massively so strong for me because yeah, it was like her sexuality, the way she was with her dance, like the snakes. She was very open in her sexuality. Like, her whole. I remember had just started performing too, and I saw her perform. I had a moment where I decided to back out of my performance. We were all in this lineup of just kind of
Mm.
going up and doing our free flow. And I compared myself so deeply to her that I left and I cried.
Mm.
And I had this whole breakdown. But you know what was so fascinating, Amy? I was crying on the hill of this festival that we were at in Big Sur, California. This was where this moment was, where I was watching her perform. And I'm crying, having these just like deep, like, oh, just feeling so much frustration with myself and like, why can't I be as confident and magnetic and, embodied like that, right? This word embodied was so in my head. I was like, why can't I just be that? And here this woman comes, the woman I was looking at. She comes with rapé, the medicine rapé, ceremonial tobacco stuff. And she just did this really beautiful ceremony with me and blessed me with it. She introduced me to this medicine, and I became her friend in that moment. And it was so beautiful because coming from, we have so much mean girl stuff happen when we're in high school and middle school and
Right.
all these kinds of things. So a lot of sister wounding and lots of things came up for me when I had watched her perform and had my comparison stuff going on. And I would love to actually share this episode with her when it gets published to just share with her the reflection of this because now, like, yeah, we're just such soul sisters. And when I really got on that other side, just seeing that she's just another human, like we've all got our stuff, Like I ended up actually living right next door to her for 3 months at one point, and we've just shared so much space and so much magic together. And it was nothing like I was projecting in my mind with all this fear and all these stories. And there was so much healing in actually just allowing myself to receive sisterhood and be in sisterhood with this woman and other mentors in my life. She was one of the first ones that I would really consider that. And as I continued to grow in my journey, I would notice that. I would notice the getting this starstruck energy or this like, wow, being in so much awe. But I realized there's all of them have reflections of parts of me that are just ready to be activated. There's some aspect of me within everybody that I'm inspired by, probably triggered by, that
Yeah.
there's something in me that's ready to be activated or wanting to be activated, whether I'm conscious of it or not. But it's such a beautiful way to live, where you see that the magic and the medicine really truly is from actually leaning into your fear. It's not doing all these rituals and thinking everything is all smooth and everything's just going to feel like butter along life. Right? When the resistance comes up, it's not about pushing or forcing or anything like this, but it's actually about like leaning in to create this resilience within ourselves and find the magic that's actually there that's creating the resistance in the first place.
Yeah, that's very well said. I think that as people, there's like phases of this and they're not really linear, but like just for the sake of it, like we'll play with them as linear for a moment, but it's like you discover, that you've been denying your potential, right, as a human being, whether it's, in the lens of your sexuality or in your capacity to like, gain wealth or generational wealth or even your capacity to heal. Like you come across a blind spot, right? And then you see or experience someone else who is doing it or has the tools or has moved past that blind spot. And I don't think that what I'm describing is like necessarily conscious for everybody, but you get that feeling that you're describing of being really uncomfortable, of being triggered, of comparing yourself, of demeaning yourself, right? And it often just happens automatically. Like we've been so entrenched and trained to do that, especially when it comes to things, like worth and our bodies. And as we come in contact with that, there's that pulling away that happens, like, oh, this hurts, this is uncomfortable, this is prodding at some soft point in me, right? And what you're describing is not that what you really need to do is just go for it and like gouge and like go into that pain. You're describing something more nuanced and something much more sophisticated that, as someone who's a somatic educator, it's this fine tuning of our moment to moment discernment to
Mm.
discover what what that really is. What is that resistance really saying? right? Because I think, and maybe you've had experiences too where you've been on the other side of that, where maybe you're so miserable, like you're so fucking tired of how it is, that you see someone who seems to have it, and you're just like, okay, like I'll just do whatever you tell me, and you just like give them all your agency, and you don't hold your own anymore, right? And that's like a place where abuse can take place, or where wounds can be kind of like re-triggered in like a way that is not necessarily leading you where you want to go, right?
Oh
And so it's
yeah.
that moment to moment discernment of like, not only who is this other person in front of me, and like, why do I feel so uncomfortable with them, right? Is it because I'm having some kind of like unreadiness, and yet there's part of me that's drawn to them? Is it because, maybe they do have something that like, I need, but I need to like take a little time, maybe sleep on it, or take a week with it to process it before I go into that, right? So what you're describing is, like I said, more nuanced and sophisticated, and it's about developing that moment to moment awareness. And I think that, dance and movement, especially, are really powerful for helping us regain connection with that moment to moment discernment and awareness. People talk about being in a flow state, and
Mm.
really that is being present moment to moment with what is occurring and allowing it to move, whether it's your energy, whether it's your physical body, and so I think, maybe you can describe the way that, you describe this woman as dancing and dancing with snakes, and kind of this undulation, right? That I know as a burlesque dancer you were tapping into, right? How do you feel like dancing connects to being present? And how do you feel like being present connects to our sexuality and reclaiming it?
Ooh, I love this. Oh, dance has saved my life. I don't know what I would do without dance. I don't know. I don't know what I would do, which is hilarious because my mom was a dancer. She would, try and knock on our doors while we were like playing little girl things. I'm like 9 years old. She's like, "Who wants to dance with me?" And like, "Mom, you're being embarrassing." And so when I went to my first school dance, I think I was probably 12 years old. I was so afraid to dance. When people would try and encourage me to go get up on the dance floor, I just always said, I can't move my body like that. I would say these things. And oh my gosh, wow. So, for any of the listeners, if you have that story in your mind that you're not a dancer, that you can't dance, I call total bull conky on that because everybody can dance, everybody can move, and you're not ballet and these kinds of things. Don't get me wrong, I love belly dance and I can get very technical. I've done belly dance for 8 years and I love the technique, but as you actually find that flow and that joy inside of you, it's actually about finding freedom within the technique, freedom within the structure. And I find that it's really unleashed my feminine and has really helped me tap into my sexual energy in such a powerful way that it just helps you learn how to connect with the senses. So I teach women sensual movement in my containers. So when women end up working with me, they think that they come and they want to start an online business and they want to make 10K months and they want to quit their jobs and all this stuff, or they want to pivot their businesses. But what they find out is they got to really connect to their deeper authenticity. They got to really connect to their deeper embodiment and their desire. And the ways that I really help bridge the mind body connection is through sensual movement and just sexy music, touching yourself, like really allowing yourself to also be seen. Like we'll do it on just women only gallery view on Zoom, like really allowing ourselves to be seen. And it is just such a healing, powerful journey that, coming from my background of having my eating disorder, I didn't really have intentions of stopping my eating disorder when I found dance 12, 13 years ago. I just kind of was like, this is just my life. And so when I started getting into dance, that started to actually connect my connection with my body, because when you have an eating disorder, you have such a big disassociation. There's a big release and control that you're trying to create. And when I just started to unlock, it started actually with fire dance, and then it got into burlesque, and then burlesque introduced me to jazz and belly dance and aerials and pole and these kinds of things. And what really stuck was belly dance. Belly dance is my it's my muse. Because actually, to me, belly dance is the dance of the sacred feminine.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different schools of thought. Some people will say, oh, it started in Egypt. Oh, it started in India. Nobody actually really knows.
Oh, I've heard a
But
rumor about the origin. I don't know if you've heard this one, but that it was
oh,
originally like for women by women, and it was with like well, maybe at some point, right? It was like the harems, like there would be like, a man with like 20 wives, especially if he was like very wealthy, right? And the wives would, just spend time with each other, and they would dance and they would feel into their own like sexuality with each other because they only had one husband and he was like not available most of the time, or maybe they didn't have like as much of a connection to him, right? Because how do you
yeah.
split yourself like with 20 women, right? So it was for women by women, and they would dance for each other to enjoy their own beauty and like appreciate their own beauty.
Wow, I love that. See, the school of thought that I love is that it was a initiation for women to when they start their periods and just get them connected to their womanhood and their initiation to that. And when they're coming into birth and these kinds of things, a lot of women in modern society, they just think that they can't exercise when they're pregnant. But actually, if you do belly dance, I know Zoe Jakes from Beats Antique, she belly danced all through her pregnancy and she had a really, really clean birth, you know? So there's so many, yeah, there's a lot of schools of thought, but I love that one because it really is around connecting to that lower pelvic floor. Like you can't do undulations and belly rolls if you're not really connected to that lower pelvic floor muscle. And I have had some crazy experiences learning belly dance and really connecting with the breath and intention and ritual and just really being really present and aware. And as I started to ground deeper into meditation practices and these kinds of things on my journey, my belly dance became a tool for me to, my dance, my body became a tool for me to really activate this sexual energy inside of me that sometimes I will just turn into this crying, just releasing so much energy to then bliss and ecstatic and having orgasms while I'm dancing and undulating. And it's so powerful because it really has been unlocked from just me going on this journey of connecting with my body, mixed with presence, mixed with, the awareness of somatics and what's going on within the body, but using undulations and kind of a little bit of qigong. I would say a lot of people see me on the dance floor and they ask me if I do qigong, and I'm like, kind of. Wasn't really trained in it, but it's you're moving this energy and it's powerful. Us women, we are powerful, and this womb energy that gets activated in there, I just don't know any other dance that really unlocks it more than mixing belly dance with sensual dance. Not super traditional belly dance, but like belly dance elements, but allowing that intuitive sensual movement flow within it. Oh, it's so juicy. And that to me, it's our primal power, right? The lower chakra areas where your root is connected to your security, your finances, and money. Hello. Your
Yeah.
sacral is connected to that sexual energy and that creativity for those ideas for money to come through. Hello. And then your solar plexus is that power and courage and strength to actually just go out and do the things that you know you need to do, the action aspect of actually getting visible with all of these ideas that are rising up from the surface. So naturally, it goes through this process of the connection to divine Mother Earth, to your body, to the ideas and sparks of creation, and allowing that sexual energy to flow, and then having that connection to your power to really bring it forth. And then, of course, the upper chakras are all part of it too, right? Connecting to your heart, so it comes through authenticity. Your throat chakra, so you're expressing it. Your third eye, where you're doing it in intuitive flow, and then your crown chakra, so you're really being led by spirit all the way. So Yeah, I feel like there's so much I could bring into dance. You could talk about chakra dances, you could talk about yoga, you could talk about bringing in the somatics. There's so much in it, but dance has absolutely changed my life. And being someone who used to say I couldn't move my body like that, I would hope that any listeners listen are like, okay, that's it. Just turn on a song, just at least one song a day, and just let yourself play, dance like no one's watching, you know. I started that at ecstatic dance. Ecstatic dance was
Yes. Hmm.
was a, you know, if you've never been to ecstatic dance and
It's
you
the best.
go, like you might have this moment of like, what is everybody doing? But that's exactly the medicine, right? Is that
Yeah.
there's that trigger, there's something there for you. What if you actually allowed yourself to dance and roll around and play and be fully unapologetic? And, you know, at least you can start that even just by yourself in your home.
Yeah. Well, we all know at this point, like, stress shows up in our bodies. It shows up in, right, like our cardiovascular system and our blood pressure. It shows up in the way that we hold our bodies too. And what you're describing, just to kind of like physiological with it for a minute, when you're dancing and you're doing these like undulating movements and you're inviting someone to, yeah, try a technique, try moving your hips this way. How does it feel to go up and then down and around, right? How does it feel to move in a slow circle? Right? There's a structure to it, but you're also inviting the person to be intuitive about it, right?
Mhm.
And to go in the direction that feels good to them and let them discover that. In a way, it's like you're inviting them to really break up those stress patterns, to move in a way that we think about, oh, I need to go get a massage, or like, a lot of things like yoni massage is becoming like more well known. And there are benefits to having a skilled practitioner working with you in that way. But I think of dance, and especially belly dance and with these like lower body undulations, as a natural form of like your own self massage from the inside. Like as I said, as you're moving your muscles in these, circular patterns, and you're getting in touch with your internal sense of those patterns, it's like
Mhm.
you're moving your blood, you're moving your tissues, you're waking up and enlivening that whole space of your body, and you're breaking it out of the stress pattern of like the clenched fists and the clenched jaw and the clenched butt of like
Yeah.
trying to control what happens around you, trying to control your life, trying to get somewhere. And so much of what you're describing in your dance approach, I think, is really powerful medicine for developing a better sense of self and also self-love, because you're moving your body in a beautiful way. You're moving your body in a way that's not just beautiful to look at or from the outside, but that feels beautiful on the inside, right? And getting people in touch with that. And that's maybe the difference sometimes between like ballet and more free form kinds of dance, is that when we get too entrenched in the structure and the institutionalized view of it, and this connects back to what you were saying in the beginning, right, about being a person who doesn't fit into those structures, right, is we can get stifled by them. We can start to get myopic and think there's just like one way, right? And in belly dance, especially, or in ecstatic dance, we're really exploring all ways of moving our body, all ways that my hips or my butt or my arms could move, and making that not just safe, but joyous, right?
Yes.
So when you're exploring this idea of wealth and breaking up those patterns around wealth, and particularly like how it's connected to what we're talking about with like body image and sexuality, right? Do you think that when people start dancing and moving their body, it changes the way that they are showing up in their business?
Yeah, I know some listeners are probably like, weren't they going to talk about wealth? We have been the whole time. And this, the irony of it, right, is you're really connecting with your desire when you tap into this aspect of yourself, and your whole life starts to change, as within, so without. So for me, I didn't mention this, but yeah, my eating disorder started to dwindle as I started getting more connected to my body and my
Mm.
dance. And it just, as I started really activating my desires and my mission and really honing in my focus with that, my light got turned on. my light got turned on. I started to not be so numb. I started to actually experience better pleasure with my partner at the time. And even I've been single for at this point almost, oh my God, it's almost 3 years. That's so amazing. But it's, yeah, even just with myself, like I'm actually starting to connect with, I almost had an orgasm in the grocery store the other day. It was quite intense. But, but like these kinds of things are happening simultaneously as more of my creativity is getting turned on. I moved to Europe to buy a castle retreat center to turn into a retreat center, and my mission is to start doing castle retreats. And we have our first one happening on Beltane. So all of this magic and creativity is flowing through. Like the vision for it came fully to life. And when you have those creative centers really juiced and really flowing, me and my business partner were like, we're gonna dance and then we'll get on a call and we'll talk about and we'll mastermind about what we're going to do because we know that dancing connects us to our flow. It connects us to our feminine energy. This particular retreat, I think I might actually be continuing to work with this archetype. We'll see as we continue, but we're working with the energy of the Empress from the
Mm.
tarot cards. So the Empress being, she's one of creativity, abundance, and fertility. And she is an empress. She is building her empire not through force, not by hustling. She really just is the force. She really knows that everything that she desires is for her, and she takes the aligned action. And she does it with this grace and this power and this conviction and this inner knowing. And for us to really tap into that energy, it really is around connecting to our femininity because she also represents divine feminine leadership. So, of course, we've got the emperor within the tarot card, too, right? Where they both have their place in building the empire. But her presence is more around the magnetism, it's more around that vitality and that fertility that comes through for her is really when she is in her creativity, she's in her femininity, and that's how she creates and builds her empire. And so that is the real message is how it all truly connects. This is some of the core foundational work that we do with women when they come and they want to start an online business, whether they sometimes if people are pivoting their entrepreneurship journey and they're wanting to do business and more ease and flow, they have to really unlearn and decondition that grind and hustle mindset that if they want to earn more, they got to do more. And it's just not the truth. Yes, you got to shift the business model, which that's what we help women with at the core foundation, but you can give someone a business model on a silver platter, do everything for them, have people close their sales for you and do the marketing for them and all this stuff. But it actually won't work for the woman who is still stuck in her in her rigidity structured what you said myopic.
Myopic, yeah, where we're narrow. Yeah, myopic.
Yeah, because it keeps you in this like linear thing where it's like one plus
Yeah.
one equals two. And we help women really expand and stretch their spaciousness in the way that they earn and be, do, and receive. So a big part of that, excuse me, is to actually embody that. And through dance, through I love taking naps. It's only like 2 p.m. here, and I just told you that I woke up from like an hour-long nap. It's like that inviting that spaciousness in your life, even if it's bit by bit, even if you're working a job and you're still pivoting into your entrepreneurship, building your business, really still creating that spaciousness wherever you can fit in. We even work with women who are busy solo moms with multiple kids, but it's like you've got to have that spaciousness come in. And one of the easiest ways to do that is through dance. I mean, everybody has time to turn on just even one song, like while you're cooking food, you can like get an energy of dancing. I love dancing in the shower, and it just brings me so much joy and it puts me in that energy. And I can tell it's night and day when I'm not active and letting that energy move and flow, then I don't have that flow integrated in the way that I'm doing my business. So then that's where I get the kinks in the hose in my energy field because as women, particularly, we're not meant to actually operate in this way. We are really truly meant to magnetize. We're really truly meant to be in that space and in that flow. And I think a lot of people talk about this, but it's really hard to, like I said, there's multiple pieces to it, right? It is the business model, but it is the way that you're structuring your day or not structuring. And there's so many aspects to it, but as I say, as within, so without. So if you can just start to invite that softness, joy, spaciousness inside, your outside life changes so much. The money, like making money as a woman in business, it's just a byproduct of your inner empress energy rising, in my fullest opinion. This is what I've been witnessing in women all over the globe in our organization and within myself too. It's kind of hard to, when you don't know that yourself, right? I saw a lot of my mentors talking about this and I thought, well, that's sounds great to you. You've got more time, you've got more money than I do. Like that sounds like it's easy for you. But they didn't start there is the thing people have to
Right.
remember, right?
Yeah, and what you're pointing to, the somatic piece here, is the aliveness and
Yeah.
the being able to tap into that desire and that creative force, because we can be dotting all the i's and crossing all the t's and doing all the right things and still feel stagnancy and stuck and wondering why money and support and all these different resources aren't flowing in. And I know from my own personal experience how transformative movement, and as Einstein says, nothing changes until something moves. So we can talk about it all day long, we can do all the beautiful meditations, but moving your body and actually shaking up the physiological patterns and reminding the cells and tissues of your body what it's like to be alive, there's no replacement for that. Like that is so foundational. At least it is, for me, and I'm hearing for you. And if you're listening to this, I love what Sabre just said about you have time to turn on a song and dance in your kitchen for 6 minutes, right? Or whatever the length of the song is, and just let that start to shift how you're perceiving your body in time and space at that moment. And then little by little, building on that until you're feeling that chance, that like kind of hunger, like, oh, I'm ready for more, like as I'm listening to you and I'm listening to everything you're saying, it's like you're very inspiring. You're inspiring that moreness, that, muchness, like that we could expand beyond what we think, our reality is offering at this moment. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's extremely exciting. And like we sort of tapped into before, the background you came from, maybe I can ask this question. In tapping into all of this feminine, divine, energy, how has that been helpful in healing, your relationship with your mother? You mentioned your mother passing, and that, obviously she was very trapped and found the only way that she could to free herself from the confines that she felt, right, internally. And that must have hurt you, right, and must have been painful. And it sounds like coming into this connection with feminine divinity, how has that been part of your personal healing journey with your mother wound?
I love this question. I may or may not cry. We'll see. I'm a crier. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that came up for me when my mom passed, I remember I was just about to turn 16 and I was in foster care. I was working at KFC. And I was on a whole bunch of medication because that's what they do when you're in foster care. And they're like, you're bipolar, you're manic depressive. Oh, you're also schizophrenic. All these things. Um, and I just made this decision when she passed. I don't know, a fire lit underneath me. I quit all my medication cold turkey. I was like, I don't care what you say, you're just it's not you. I'm gonna run away if you tell me to not do it. Or so if you want me to stay here, you're gonna let me do what I want to do. I really just I like laid it down. I'm like, you cannot control me. Was like what really got lit up under inside of me. And oh man, that was a serious light underneath me. I ended up graduating high school a year early because I just did whatever I could to just get out as soon as I could so I could really just go pave a different path. And that was really what my motivation and my drive was to create a life that my mom didn't get to have. And that's why I mentioned I'm launching my podcast on February 17th. It would be her 65th birthday. And I've said for like the past 3 years, I was like, I'm going to launch a podcast when I'm 30. I'm going to launch a podcast when I'm 30. I just turned 30, January 28th. And I thought I was going to launch the podcast on my birthday, but I ended up doing a ceremony and had this huge initiation and basically was like, no, you got to do it on your mom's birthday. And it just feels like a big full circle moment because actually, the reason why I got into having an eating disorder when I was 8 years old was because my mom, she really wanted me to be a plastic surgeon. That's actually what I graduated high school and I was like, I'm going to be a plastic surgeon. I went the route of I'm going to make a difference with burn victims and kids with cleft palates and things like this. But it was really my mom. I was doing plastic surgery on my stuffed animals when I was like 9 years old, giving them tummy tucks and facelifts and putting the stomach in. And because I just watched my mom spend hours in front of the mirror getting herself ready for nothing, she didn't work, didn't go anywhere. And she just had so much of this focus on how she looked. And she was just really wanting me to go be a plastic surgeon so I could fix her stomach, fix her nose, fix her this. And then as I started going into puberty, she's like, oh, you have a, a nose that people would pay for. Oh, you got a J Lo booty. Oh, hopefully your boobs come in more later. She would say these things. And oh, it was so much passed down from her own
Right.
body shaming and sexual trauma and everything too. So, you know, coming into the healing and the just that permission slip when she passed away, I thought I was still going to pursue the plastic surgery thing. That died pretty quickly as I started really getting like clear on what I actually wanted. Especially you put me in college and you put me in a freaking political science class for general education. I'm like, I am bored. Do I really have to do all of these things to go to medical school in a whole another 10 years? I'm like, I'm out. I can't do it. Thank God. But I would have graduated actually last year if I didn't actually do that. Can you imagine? So going on this journey, it was like this reclamation to create a life that was uh, one that she didn't get to have. She never got to find her community that really inspired her. She never got to find a partner that really, truly, truly loved her.
Yeah.
She never got to really love herself.
Yeah,
That's
and
really
love her authentic body, it sounds like.
yeah. It's like she
Yeah.
had all of these. She's like a prodigy child, really, when it comes down to it. There wasn't anything she couldn't do except for love herself. So I thought, God damn it, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to create a different life. And I thought I was going to go the traditional route with that, but I'm really grateful that I ended up just coming across the right people, moving to Santa Cruz, getting into fire dancing, going to Burning Man, meeting entrepreneurs and breathwork practitioners and people who traveled for a living and really stretched my mind. I was like, I wish my mom went to Burning Man, like truly.
Yeah.
And so I felt such a heart on fire for my mission to create something that she didn't have. And actually this vision that I have to purchase this castle, it's like a 5-year dream. I would love to do it by the time I'm 35. So right now my goal is to just do retreats at different parts in Europe and live in different parts in Europe and see where I do want to land. But the dream for the castle is to actually give back to holistic rehabs. I feel like that's a really big missing link. Holistic rehabs for addicts, but also even for eating disorders, things like this, but bring in holistic plant medicines, practitioners, somatics, that kind of thing. I also really want to teach kids financial literacy and entrepreneurship, whether, we could do partnerships with other organizations that do this and then raise money through the events that we do at the castle, particularly foster youth and, youth that have gone to juvenile hall and things like this, but all kids. And I also really want to help the felines and protect the felines. My mom had way too many cats and she never got them fixed. So I just have a really special spot for felines. They're the familiars, they're feminine wisdom companions. And yeah, ultimately also have a sensual movement, mystic arts type of theater where it's all women, where women can actually come and learn sensual embodiment and sensual dance and learn how to actually be seen by other women. These are all things that really have come about through my healing journey, but they've come about through my healing journey because I saw that it was something that I wish my mom would have had, you
Right.
know? And we
Yeah.
have such a different opportunity today with social media and all the digital marketing opportunities and just so much that I'm like, why would you not take advantage of creating such a different life? Because back then, our parents, grandparents, they didn't have access to personal development and transformation like we do
Right.
today. So that fire inside of me, it never died. Like it just got brighter and brighter and it's gotten real strong. And I think in a way it kind of came from a wounding. My ambition came from a wounding at the beginning.
Yeah. And that is so normal. I think that that's
Right.
actually where a lot of our passion and our fire
Yeah.
comes from is pain that gets alchemized into a purpose, into a direction, right? And if you're listening and you're in the middle of the pain right now, just don't try to skip ahead is my best advice in terms of yes, there will be quantum leaps, but they will happen spontaneously. They will happen naturally. They will happen through those chance meetings, or through listening to a podcast that something opens up in your brain, right? That a new pathway gets forged, right? But being with the process is the process, right?
Yes.
And I, as I'm connecting with you and listening, I don't know that you saw this in my name, but I'm also a quarter Japanese.
Oh,
and I
yes.
and
Yep.
and and I think about people who there's more and more mixed race people, right, in the world than maybe there ever has been, in the sense of like globalization and the modern society that we have. And when you carry the genetic information from like these different cultures, right, and these different ways of perceiving and doing things, it does speak to like a completely different world than the world that our ancestors grew up in terms of the interconnectedness and the synthesizing of different viewpoints and ways of doing things. And I think it's just absolutely beautiful that, kind of right away, you went to the alchemizing of your mother's pain and your mother's wound, that fire that you described getting lit under you at KFC. And I'm not taking this medication anymore, and I'm going to do it differently, you know? And in a sense, like that's what so much of the world needs right now is to do it differently. And
Yeah.
we're in that process right now. We're in that process of doing it differently and you know, being a multiracial, multidimensional human being is part of that, I believe.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you say that it's really about being in the process too and the quantum leaps happening because you never know where your life's going to be. When I started this business that I'm in now, I didn't have thoughts about having a castle and turning it into a retreat center and building an empire. I never even considered myself a leader or anything like this. So but it was that fire that I just continued to lean into and really being just committed to expansion and really following the nuggets along the way and just following my golden thread, right? And anytime
Beautiful.
I felt like fear coming up, oh my God, I can't even imagine if I would have let fear stop me from saying yes to this
Right.
business, for
Yeah.
instance, right? Like I found it 2 weeks after this incredible ritual. But you know what a lot of people do? They'll set all these intentions But then, the partner or the business opportunity or whatever comes to them, but then, then they still let their limiting beliefs and their limitations tell them, try and convince them why they cannot. But it's like just challenging and questioning what if. And of course there's always a chance that you will, quote unquote, I don't even think that there's anything such thing as failure, right? There's only feedback and strengthening your discernment. So actually, no, the only way you can fail is if you don't try. So you kind of shoot yourself in the foot being afraid of failure if you don't try, because then you
Right.
just fail then.
Or waiting for the fear to not be there. I think people are like, well, if I'm afraid, like I should wait till I'm not afraid. And it's like, actually, and I know this, and you know this as entrepreneurs, as successful, like, women doing what we're doing, there's still moments of being afraid all the time.
All day.
There's self-doubt all the
Yeah.
time. And yet you still show up and you still move your body and you still explore and you still go, what if? And you still dream, because the fear and those, primal survival patterns, they're not going to go away. You're just going to build new pathways and expand on that, part of your nervous system. That part of your brain is just going to keep expanding. So yeah, there's your amygdala, there's the warning signs going off in your brain that say, oh, this is getting a little too triggery right now, right? And then there's also, but I know this could be worth it. But there's part of me that's delighted. There's part of me that's in, you know, totally excited and feeling juicy about this. So let me go ahead and step forward into it. This is so exciting. I love everything that you've shared today. Your story is amazing. I would love for you to tell our listeners, what's the name of your podcast, right? And where can they find more information about your work?
Yes. So my podcast is Radiance Unleashed and Unapologetic. It's for women who really want to reclaim their witch wound, who really want to step into their visionary expansion and really claim that creatrix energy within them. You can also follow me on Facebook or on Instagram. You can just find me with my first name, Sabre Bruffy. On Instagram, it's actually Sabre in Paris right now, but depending on when you listen to this, I might be in another part of Europe. But Sabre, Sabre, spelled like the sword. Facebook is usually the best way because it will just always have my last name, Sabre Bruffy. And yeah, ultimately, I help women really step into creating a life fully in alignment with their values, for them to really step into a life where they can really create a life by design ultimately. So if you're an entrepreneur and you know you want to expand into another version of income where you're in collaboration with other women, you get to create generational wealth. We call it a shared economy wealth income model. So there's lots of different ways that you can step into the world of working with me, but just following me, my content first and foremost. I teach free master classes that introduce how people can actually partner with me, but it is really for women who are either currently entrepreneurs or even women who have never been entrepreneurs, but they know that they are magical AF and they know that they need to have a business model that it just aligns with all of them, something that's good for the people and the planet as well as profit, and really creating more of this ripple effect with your gifts. So in essence, that's what I do. And I have free classes that people can check out. It's usually in the link in bio on any of my pages.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much. This is such a wonderful conversation. I'm excited to keep following and hearing your story and listening to your podcast.
Yay! Thank you so much, Amy. This has been a really beautiful conversation, and I love the weaving of the body and dance and wealth. I don't get to talk about this as much, and I feel like it's something that, I mean, it literally is, it's been my superpower. It's been my secret to actually creating the life that I have lived, and also for women to actually step into, where you remember you said something about you're moving your body in beauty, not even just the way that it looks, but also when I've learned how to do this with myself in the mirror and actually learning how to share my dance and create art with it, even from the visual aspect, it's like you're playing with your avatar in this way where you step into this whole new archetype and embodiment of who you are. So yeah, people who follow me will see a lot of that dance. And I just really I pray that it inspires many women to create and share their dance and their heart and their art with the world as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Well, everybody check out Sabre on social media, listen to her podcast, and we'll connect again soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey there, friend. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I would love to hear your thoughts. Follow me on Instagram at Amy Takaya and send me a DM about this episode. I'd like to thank you for being part of this somatic revolution. And if you'd like to support the podcast and help more people learn about somatics, consider leaving a review or a rating. And finally, if you'd like to have the experience of relief in your tight hips or back and learn to understand what your body is really saying to you, visit youcanfreeyoursoma.com. I can't wait to share with you what is truly possible. Bye for now.